everyone. This is Jo Massaro in our crowded room tonight with our live audience. You can probably hear them. I'm with Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club, and we're so excited that you're with us tonight. We have a very special guest, Leilani Squires, who's going to be with us, or who is with us. But we definitely want to share a few things first. We are basically a virtual book club. Every month, the first Thursday of the month, we have a new author. So you're just not reading a book, you actually get to talk to the author. And we're so excited tonight to have one of those wonderful people, Leilani Squires.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you. Now, every month is always, I'm trying to move over on my chair here so that you can actually see me. Every month, we try to bring, we read novels and things like that, but there are months when we have a really important message we want to get across, and this is definitely one of those months. And yep, somebody's phone is ringing, yes. So why don't we just give Leilani a little opportunity to share a little bit about herself and why she's here tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm very honored to be here and share with you something that is very near and dear to my heart. A little bit of background.
Sure.
Got my degree from Taylor University in professional writing and my master's degree from Regent. I worked in several places. As a writer and editor, one of them being with Jerry Jenkins for his Christian Writers Guild. And now I get to be a communications coordinator for Prison Fellowship International. And it was through that work that I was able to get connected with Frank and work with him on something that is very dear to his heart as well, the book, Now You See Me.
Yeah, so I'm going to pop that up there, Now You See Me. And I got to get my book in the right spot. Thank you very much. Yeah. And so why don't you just give us a little history about the book?
Well, one morning I got this email from Frank that said, I have this great idea. How about we put a book together? And he wanted to get it done in a pretty short deadline. And I was very hesitant at first about it because it was a tight deadline. Mm-hmm. But the more he talked about it and the more that I was like, you know what? If I think of it as chapters, each chapter is an article. I can write an article in about an evening, right? And so he wanted, we discussed the timeline being that I would do the writing in the month of October. So a year ago, I was just realizing I was in front of the computer an awful lot. Wow. During that time, I had a 9-month-old and I was nursing 6 times a day. I had a 3-year-old who was trying to do the homeschooling and potty training and everything. I broke my foot in there, and so
You weren't busy, were you?
I know. And then so we did the research for it, the writing of it, and 2 drafts of revisions in the month of October. So it was an intense process. A lot of people are like, how did it go? And I'm like, I don't really remember much of it. It was pretty fast and furious, but looking back now, I am so proud and so honored that I got to be a part of that project with Frank and the rest of the PFI staff.
Well, I have a few notes, so excuse me while I refer to them. I wrote down, which I wanted to share, what the mission is for Prison Fellowship International, and it's to rescue, restore, and rebuild the broken lives of children, to care for one of the largest unreached groups in the world with God's unconditional love. Now that is absolutely amazing. There's so many times we want to do something and we don't know where to start or how to do it. And so maybe you could share a little bit about how it actually started. With a familiar name, I think we maybe make the difference between the international and the mission part.
So Prison Fellowship Ministries started with Chuck Colson.
Yes.
And his experience being in prison for 9 months because of his involvement in the Watergate scandal. From that experience, he realized that only a changed heart can turn around.
Sure. I think we can all say that.
And from that, Prison Fellowship Ministries started. And then a couple years after that got started, then Prison Fellowship International got started. So Prison Fellowship Ministries is United States. international is everything else around the world. And so I get to be a part of the international side of things.
It's just amazing.
Mhm.
This was a book, you read many books, but this was a book that I was telling Leilani, I actually read it in one sitting because I could not put it down. And there were moments when I was crying and moments when, you just want to do something.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about that at the end, what you can do to help a lot of the children. But let's just look at something else here. I was talking to Leilani. In the book, there are these stats that are absolutely amazing. As of 2017, there are at least 10 million men and women in prison worldwide. And 65% of families with a member in prison or jail could not meet basic needs to sustain life for themselves, let alone for their children. And 23% of children with a father who has served time in a jail or prison have been expelled or suspended from school, compared to just 4% of children who have fathers that are not incarcerated. And overwhelmingly, incarcerated parents are fathers, many of them young, in state and federal prisons. And when fathers are incarcerated, family income can drop by up to 22%. That just is mind-blowing. And I was sharing with you ahead of time that I have a son that's incarcerated. We're in Fort Wayne, Indiana. My son is in in New York. And I can absolutely attest to some of those things. And we're not even in a different country. I can attest to some of those things in our own family as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we just start talking a little bit about some of the things that happened when in other countries when a parent becomes incarcerated, and even some of the reasons why a parent could become incarcerated.
Yeah, and it's a wide variety of reasons. And oftentimes we get the stories of they were just trying to, the parents were just trying to make a living.
Yep.
And so a few of them would try to do the drug runs. And so they would get paid to do that so they could provide food for their children, and then they were caught. Others, they stole something so they could provide for their family, and then they were caught. Some of them are very justifiable offenses that they needed to be put in prison. But it is the victims of their children that are also paying the price.
Sure.
Their families are also ostracized and victimized a lot of the time because the villages will shun them because of they're a child of a prisoner. A lot of times for these children, they don't just lose a parent to prison, they also lose the other parent in one way or another, whether it be through the emotional trauma that they are feeling, or it is that they have to move away to find another job so they could still try to provide an income. Or it's too much, and the other parent will leave the child and go try to find another life. So these children are the social orphans of what has happened to them, and it's not their choice, of course, and the trauma that they experience often, the children are there when their parent is arrested, and that trauma of seeing all that happen, it stays with them. And so when our field workers go meet with these children, they not only look at, are you safe where you live? Are you being educated? Can you attend school? They also look at your health and make sure that they know how to get clean water. They know how to cook food properly. And also, they look at their emotional stability. They look at how is your emotional health. And so they are able to give customized counseling for the children to work through a lot of those issues. If the child does not have a lot of that counseling and that one-on-one attention, that specialized attention, it's 5 to 10 times likely that the children will also be an offender eventually in their life, juvenile criminals later on. So we are working very hard to meet that need as early on as possible.
When you were talking, I was reminded of a few things in the book. One being how when a parent would leave as well. They have one incarcerated, and then one parent leaves because it's so overwhelming. And at times, the oldest sibling becomes the person that is actually responsible to help take care of the younger ones, or sometimes even a grandparent.
A lot of the times we see grandparents are the ones that are being caregivers.
Yes, and some of their living conditions.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, when we think about some of the things you were talking about that we take for granted, you know, being safe, having food on our table, you know, a safe place to sleep, all of those things. Yes, blankets, yes. All of the things that these poor children just do not have.
And it's some things that we think are so easy to fix. It is so easy to fix. And yet for them who don't have a community, who a lot of the times their own family has rejected them, their community has rejected them, they are not connected with a local church. So they are by themselves. And so when we are able to come alongside them, give them education, that safety, that community, they see that they are not alone. And a lot of the time, they haven't heard about Christ. They haven't heard about Jesus and how much he loves them. And so when we are able to connect with them on the physical, you know, here's your food, here's food, here is health, then we are able to give them that spiritual attention as well. So they have that community and they see that they are not alone.
That's one of the things. I just love what you guys do. I mean, when you think about it, you know, I was saying how I have a son that's incarcerated. You know, thank God, you know, his children have, you know, family around that are supportive, and they're doing well in school and those kind of things. But I can't imagine, and I don't think we can in this country, you know, imagine what it's like to have a parent incarcerated in, like, what are some of the countries? I know that I saw some of the countries that you actually have.
Rwanda, Colombia, Cambodia, India, Nepal.
I had the list. I don't know what I did with it, but you got
Zimbabwe.
it. Well, you've got
I
them.
remember all of them. I feel
I think
like
you got
missing
them.
one or two.
No, I think you got them. Yeah, so imagine, and this started quite a while ago.
5 years ago, actually.
Yes. 5 years ago. And look what God has done in the course of this time frame. It's just amazing.
Yes. And to see where the children started, and now we're able to get data. You know, we're able to measure the impact throughout the years, which is why research like this for the book is so important now, because when I was doing the research, not a lot has been done for international or for countries that are not developed yet. It is hard to find the stats. It is hard to know just how many children are out there that don't have that support, who are children of prisoners. It is hard to find out how many of them are taken care of by a grandparent, how many are actually enrolled in school, how many have their vaccinations, how many have that access
that's a big thing right there too.
So over the 5 years, we've been able to we're able to collect that data, and now we can see in measures how that difference is made, but also to hear their stories and to see how, in some ways, we get to work ourselves out of a job.
The stories are absolutely amazing. You really need to get this book. Like I said, I mean, you're reading these, and the photos in the book are just amazing as well. So you're not just reading about these children.
You get to see them.
You get to see them. And when you hear a picture is worth 1,000 words, it absolutely is. It was just mind-blowing. I was reading parts of it to my husband, and which I tend to do at times when I'm reading for the book club. And he was just like, tell me some more, you know. And he would say, what part are you reading now? You know, so it was just an incredible journey for him to listen as well.
I was so excited to be able to just help tell their stories, to kind of be their voice.
Yeah. Now, you know, we talk about some of the things that lead people to, you know, become incarcerated. Some of the things, I think, that if I remember correctly, were like lack of jobs that you're talking about, and other things that really create an atmosphere of people, like you were saying, actually, you know, getting involved in criminal activity. Some of it is, you know, what they've been dealt. It really is. And
it doesn't just stop when they are released from prison. They carry that with them for a while, which is why we are wanting to continue Chuck Colson's vision of changing their hearts and changing, because when their heart is changed, then their behavior changes.
Yes.
And so when that happens, not only do we see the heart of the prisoners change, then they start ministering to those around them in the prisons. There's another program that Prison Fellowship International offers called the Prisoner's Journey Program. And it is an 8-week program that studies the book of Mark. And
now that I didn't know.
And they go through Jesus the prisoner. And so there's that identification of knowing that Jesus was there. He knows what it feels like. And they hear testimonies of other prisoners who have accepted Christ as their Savior, and to see that life transformation. There was one story of a guy who was a part of one of the most feared gangs in the prison. And one of our workers went to go talk to him, asked for a meeting with him, got to sit with him. And then she heard his story.
Wow.
And over time, he went through the program. He attended the classes, graduated, and became a Christian. And now he is ministering to those men who are in the gang. And so one of the most feared gangs are now ministering to others in the prison.
So let me just clarify something, because they hear the fellowship, prison fellowship. Do you just talk to people you don't just talk to people that are Christian? Is the point that I want to make, I guess.
No.
Yes.
No, this is very much an evangelism organization. We go into where a lot of people don't want to go.
Yes.
And understandably so. Prison ministry is not everyone's calling, but it is something that God has called us to do, to visit the widows, the orphans, those in prison, and to minister to them, to let them know that they are not alone and that Jesus loves them unconditionally.
Amen. Isn't it great that he does? I want to just take a break for a second. Does anybody have any questions right now? Whether you are on, hi everybody who joined. If you have a question for Leilani, please post it on Facebook, or does anybody have any questions here so far? I know we can talk about it a couple of times, but how do people get involved?
Okay, so one of the ways that you can get
involved. I'll cover my face.
Is to sponsor a child. They are from different countries, different ages. Excuse me. And it's $35 to sponsor a month. And this helps enable people that are already there, already in the country, already a part of that community, already speak the language, to find these children. A lot of the times it's the finding the children that is a hard job. We usually find them because of the parent in prison telling us, my family needs help. And then this enables them to make sure that they have a safe home, that they are getting the health care that they need, if they're school age, that they're getting education, that they're getting that special counseling, and so that's the emotional and spiritual care that they need, and that they are a part of a community. There's so many stories that they find the children and are able to connect the parents or the caregivers and the children with the local church, and the church welcomes them, and they have that community. And also the parent is able to get some education sometimes, or especially like, this is how you cook food, this is how you get clean water, this is how you are able to help your children with their schooling so that they can excel in life. Sometimes it's also, this is how you can have a home business so you can still make an income, and so you can still take care of your children. Instead of them having to leave their children so that they can find an income, they're able to do it from home. One child was able to receive a special gift, and very entrepreneurially bought a shaved ice machine. And so when she's not doing school, when she's not doing her homework, she opens her stand and she does shaved ice for her village. So she's able to get a little bit of an income, and now she is able to share with her community what God has done for her too. So
just by people reaching out.
Just by people reaching out. You can sponsor a child. You can give a one-time gift. Please be praying. Praying is the big one.
Yeah.
This is hard work. This is kind of emotionally draining work for a lot of our field workers and staff. And it's hard stories. When I was writing this book, it was very hard to write, knowing that this is going on. So just be praying for their strength and their dedication, and that they would always have that security and knowing that God has called them to do this. Prayer is very big, that they would also be praying for changed hearts in the prisons.
Yeah, is this only done internationally?
No, it's done within the
Okay, so
United States.
can you repeat the question too?
Sure.
For people?
If this is only done internationally, no. There is Prison Fellowship Ministries, which is the United States. And then there's Prison Fellowship International, which is everything outside the United States.
Mhm.
So yes,
But your book kind of concentrated on the internet.
it did. Yes,
Mhm.
that's correct.
Well, I know our church at Christmas time, I go to another church. We do the angel.
Angel
That
Church.
is
Yes.
Prison Fellowship International.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Prison Fellowship Ministries. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I
So
didn't
Angel
realize.
Tree does is with Prison Fellowship Ministries and Prison Fellowship International. That is something that we take around the world as well.
Oh,
It's a
Just
very
read your
cool thing.
book, a lot of people know about that.
Yes.
Oh,
And we're actually going to be seeing Liz Curtis Higgs in November. And what were you? And she's going to be speaking as well.
Yeah, that's one artist we get to partner with. Prison Fellowship International gets to partner with Anita Renfro and Liz Curtis Higgs and a couple others, and we get to help spread the word more about the need for children to have that help.
Wow,
So,
that is
yeah.
just amazing. Thanks for the question. Anybody else have a question? Hello. Anybody else have a question? Or I don't have one online yet. Okay. So what actually got you involved in something like this, I guess, is really something I've been interested in. I mean, how do you go from where you were to being involved with, what you do right now?
I have wanted to be a writer ever since I knew that you could write and make a living at it.
And we know somebody that, was kind of good at this too, would be your mother,
That's right.
which is Peggy Sue Wells, who is a wonderful author and friend, and she'll be with us again in December.
So I would watch her sitting at her typewriter at the time.
Typewriters, folks.
And just be like, wow, she is telling a story. And I love stories. And all through growing up, in fact, when we would be driving in the car, I'd be reading to the point that when I turned 16 and needed to drive somewhere, I'm like, I don't know how to get to church. We've been going there for 16 years and I don't know how to get to church. Which road do I take? There's always a book in the pen. And so I love the aspect of being able to tell stories. And so all through my writing career, it has been, how can I help you tell your story better? So it's throughout the different jobs that I've had, it's how can I help you tell your story? And so when I was asked to help these children tell their stories, it was an honor. It was hard, but it was an honor to help be their voice.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's amazing, the stories. You really need to read this book. It is just, it's heartfelt. You can tell that there is so much love put into the writing. You really did an incredible job, by the way.
Thank you.
So any questions? I don't want to miss people's questions. So
And it was not just me. I was able to help Frank tell his story with that.
this is true. Yes.
With Frank, he had
It was his idea.
It was his idea.
Yes.
And he was there through every step of the way.
Wow.
And he knew exactly what other people needed to know about these children to bring it to light, that it was time to bring it to light.
So tell us a little bit about Frank.
Frank was the CEO. He's the former CEO of Prison Fellowship International. If I could just say my piece anymore, it would be great. And I don't know much about his background, except he's also from New York, and
Yes,
he has a
so am
family,
I.
and he
Yes.
is very passionate man for the prisoners and their families. And I have not seen that type of passion for meeting a need, because Christ calls us to. And that's the only reason that Christ calls us to meet this need. That is his motivation. And that's been very inspirational for me.
Yeah, it's just amazing when you think about, if we go back to Chuck Colson, we all know his name. Well, people my age, I know, you do too, yes, know his name as who was involved in Watergate. and in his time in being incarcerated, that recognizing what you were saying earlier, that the only way that there could be some change is really through your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a heart thing. And so allowing yourself, I am looking at the audience, so it's not that I'm ignoring you guys, but to have a heart change. I know for my own life, there was a heart change for me when I accepted Jesus. And it began a long journey. I can't tell you that it happened overnight. It took a long time, and sometimes it was a very long journey that I had to go on in order to, have changes in my own life. So imagine all that these children have, basically, and it can be generational too, is it not?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I think it is. Okay, I'm just going to put my 2 cents in, because I think that if you are dealing with a parent that's incarcerated, they could have had a parent that's incarcerated.
That's true.
Or for children, now, if they're not getting the help that they need to have, they could go into the same, area again, just like their parents, and become incarcerated as well. So,
and that is something that we bring out in the book, that it is breaking the chain, breaking the
yes,
cycle.
The cycle
of it being a repeat in generation to generation. Because and if you just think about the emotional aspect of having a parent in prison, and then you find a group of kids that are your family, that then leads you to other hard in life choices, it does repeat. And so that, again, yes, it is that change. There was a story that I got to help tell of a child who got sponsored, and there was not a local church in their village. And so, but the field workers knew that the house was rather falling apart. The roof was not shielding for monsoon season anymore. It was very dangerous for them to live there. So they were able to get several volunteers to help rebuild the house. And that house has now become
a church.
Their worship center, yes.
That is awesome.
Something that used to be shame-filled for them, something that was not safe, something that was actually causing them to be more sick, is now a refuge for others in their community. And I think that's a great example of what we were able to do.
That is a great testimony right there. It really is. Now, you also have a background, so I'm going to put this in there now too. You have a background in writing and editing and all of these things. And so I don't want to miss this opportunity for people to ask questions. Maybe Kim can start us off with a question. I just love saying that. But if, we were talking about initially how one of the things, and I totally forgot what it was, but I said we could talk about it to get us started on you writing. But I think you actually kind of talked about it, how you had this desire to begin to write. And there are people who want to tell their story sometimes, or to write. And I know for myself, feeling so unqualified to do that, but I'm not. And neither are you. If you have a story, or if you feel you want to write, what could you say to somebody who wants to write?
Start small.
Start small. What a good advice.
Something that I recommend a lot of people that want to tell their stories: talk it out. Say it. When you sit down in front of a computer and you see that blank page and there's that cursor blinking, 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 you're like, should I start here in my life? Should I start here? This story, should I start here? It doesn't help the writing process at all. So just start with a story. Just start recording your stories, the ones that mean the most to you, the ones that were the most significant changes in your life, the ones that the experiences where you saw God the most, where you saw His faithfulness the most, where you felt most loved, where you felt most able to then minister to others. Whatever that story is, start just by talking it out, and then you can write it from there. Or just start writing down notes.
Think small.
Think small. Little bit by little bit.
I think that's some of the best advice I have heard in a long time.
I don't think I could have accomplished that book if I didn't think it one chapter at a time. One chapter at a time. Tonight I'm going to write one chapter. Tomorrow I'm going to write one chapter. This weekend I'm going to edit one chapter. It's one paragraph, little bite-sized pieces, and then you have a book.
I've also been told, and I know that's for myself, that you need to be consistent in setting some time aside consistently each week.
It does help.
Yes. I mean, it may not always be possible, but I think one of the biggest things I've been told is that you need to be consistent.
It does help get your subconscious, your consciousness,
those creative things going on.
It's kind of like a habit then.
Yeah. Yes, we have to schedule time is what I've been told as well. Put it on your calendar. Don't forget to, this is part of what your life is now. And I think it's important. It may only be for you and your family to read, but there's a story there that we all have and we want to share. Okay, so Kim, oh yeah.
What was one of your biggest fears?
You want to repeat
what
that?
was one of my biggest fears in starting to write?
That's a good question.
Write overall or writing this book?
You took one of my questions, so that's good.
Oh, good.
What was my biggest fear? My biggest fear was that I wasn't going to be good enough.
Good enough, yeah.
And I would say I still wrestle with that. And I think it's a good fear because it keeps pushing me to do as excellent work as I possibly can. But that also means I very much appreciate the collaboration that writing can bring. So that I'm working with an editor, I'm working with the person I'm interviewing, I'm working with my other writers that I'm like, does this make sense? They can read it for me as well. But just to have that fear push of how can I be better today? How can I be better in this article versus the article I wrote even 6 months ago?
Sure. Anybody have another writer question, Kim?
I'm not the writer.
I know, she's the editor. We have a wonderful editor in the room. And so if anybody needs an editor, check with me, okay? She's great. So in life, how has this, just in writing this book alone, and your involvement in the ministry here, the international ministry, how has it changed you?
This would be part of my testimony. Before, or just as I was approached with, hey, we're looking for an editor, would you be interested in a few projects from time to time by Prison Fellowship International? I was very spiritually dry. I was so tired, and I didn't know if God was still doing anything. And one of the projects they asked me to do was to interview people that were in the trenches doing this ministry work. And month after month, week after week, I'm hearing these stories of amazing transformations, amazing heart transformations. And I was like, okay, God, if you are able to take this murderer and change his life to the point that he is ministering to everybody he can, I know you're here for me right now. And month after month, week after week, still today, I'm able to be a part of an organization that is telling these stories of how much God sees. God is involved. And in so many different ways. From the people that are knocking on the doors of the child's house to say, we want to sponsor you, to the people that are going into the prisons day after day after day after day after day, and ministering to the people that are often the most outcast and forgotten, to my little work on my little couch in my little home in little Indiana. To be able to be a part of that has been spiritually life-changing. I am able to see a different side of God, of his compassion, of his love, unconditional love, than I've ever seen anywhere else.
Wow. Well, I was crying before we went on the air, so. And I just lost my question, but give me a second and it will come back. I'm going to have to ask another one probably
Right,
because
you have to stand up and turn around.
Right, I was starting to cry too, so give me a second. So if you were not doing this, because we talked about this earlier, if you were not doing this, do you think there would be anything else that would your life have changed at any juncture? Do you think by any decisions that you made?
I probably still would be more involved in music, and probably teaching music more so than I'm.
Okay. Well, I remember what my question was.
Okay.
Because I know for myself that I have felt and forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And I have felt like God must not be hearing me or seeing me. And so I think we can all relate to that. And so that's what really touched me. And thinking about those children is that I can't even envision knocking on the door, or if there isn't even a door.
Yeah.
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 And being able to tell this child that there is somebody who's a long way away, who is thinking of you and caring about you and wants to help you and make a difference in their lives. That is just, I could cry again all over.
Yes. There was a lot of tears in this book, and every month I get to help tell more stories, and it's amazing to see how different they are. I mean, so different from one another, and how God specifically met that need. Yeah, there's the typical education, there's a typical health, there's a typical, but to meet as that specific need for that child, for that family, is really amazing, that God has been able to see them in their most low point.
Yeah. I think we can all relate to being at a low point in our lives. I'm going to show the cover of the book again. Maybe you could give them the website.
If you go to Prison Fellowship International or pfi.org, there's a lot of information about all the work that we do, as well as even if you just type in "Now You See Me," a link will come up that you can download the book, or there is some free copies here. We ask that you take one, read it, and pass it along.
Yeah, so we get the privilege and honor of getting some free books tonight, and the whole idea is to read them and definitely pass them along to impact. And I'm going to show this picture again if you want to just talk about that for a few seconds.
Sure. So this is one of the child packets. These are different children that are in need of a sponsor, different ages, different countries, different needs. And this is one way that we are able to enable the people that are already there to minister to them specifically in what they are needing. It's $35 a month, and it is a way that we can help them be safe in their home and in their communities. Often the children in developing countries, they are very likely to be sex trafficked, and very likely to have child labor, and very likely to be abused, because they are the social outcasts and nobody is really looking out for them. They're not seen. So this is one way that we are able to make sure that they are safe, that they are loved, that they have that emotional and spiritual care, that they have that nutritional and health care, and that they are in school, that they are able to have the tuition fees. A lot of the times the families cannot put food on the table, so the option of having tuition, of having the money for uniforms, is out of the question.
Sure.
A lot of the time,
they may not even know where their next meal's coming from.
That's true. A lot of the times, even if they are in school, but they can't afford a uniform, the children in schools will pick on them. They'll bully them just simply because they don't have a good school uniform or the adequate materials to do their good schoolwork.
You brought up something that I want to touch on again, is sex trafficking and abuse. I know that it's so prevalent, especially for these children that are a lot of times left on their own.
Yeah. And a lot of them are walking miles upon miles to get to a school.
Right.
And so one of the programs that CPP does, or Children in Prisons program does, is they give them bikes. And so they're able to get to school a lot faster, a lot safer, and back home. So that's one way.
They had a great picture of I think it was a little boy in there or no, maybe it was a little girl, but
probably both.
yes, they got a brand new bike, and they you could just see the biggest grin on their face.
Yes.
So excited to have it.
Transportation is an amazing thing.
Yeah. So this picture that I have here is of Gene Bosco, a boy who was born in 2011, and he lives in Rwanda. So I just want to put up his information again for everybody to see. you can sponsor a child for $35 a month. And when you think about it, we can waste $35 in a month so easily. Not everybody, but,
But
just
it
think
can
about
go
how
by
many
fast.
times you stop to get coffee, those kind of things. Or you could even, if you said I could not do it by myself, you could join with a partner.
Yeah, there's several church groups. There have been several ladies groups. There are several Sunday school groups that have sponsored 1, 2, 3 children at a time. And so it's really cool to see another community banding together to tell this child, not only does one person, but many people love you.
And all of them can write letters
That's
too.
right. You can write
Yes.
letters and they will write back.
Yes, so that is just amazing. Anybody have any? Yes, Marianne has a question.
Do you actually work with the prisoners, or are you part of interviewing people?
I have interviewed a few of the prisoners. It's mostly by email, just because of them being on the other side of the world, and being able to get a telephone to them is not usually an option. But then most of my interviews have been with the people that work in the prisons. So I have been able to interview some of the prisoners, but usually it's the workers.
What if somebody wanted to say to you, I'd like to volunteer. After praying about it, I feel like God is calling me to do this. How do they start that process?
The first step would be to go to Prison Fellowship International's website and look for some more information. They do have options where you can travel to the different countries where they are working and be a part of a, I can't remember the trip's name, but I will.
So you're going with like a
information.
team of people?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Did I see another hand up? No, okay. I'm not seeing a question. Hi, Diane. I see Molly. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Sandra. Okay, so at this point, what else, is there anything else you'd like to talk to us about Prison Fellowship?
So much.
So why don't you just tell us some of that?
Story after story of these little ones.
Because we have time, so
Okay.
we're interested in hearing them.
Let's see, some stories that I got to tell recently. There was a story of a little girl who, I think she was 2 or 3 years old. And because of the trauma of experiencing all that she had experienced in her very young life, she had been scratching at her face. So a lot of that emotion had been internalized, and it was appearing in the scratching. And she was also not able to communicate. She was not talking. And it was through meeting the physical needs and the emotional needs that now she is a bubbly personality. She can't wait to talk to people. And the scars are gone. She's not scratching anymore. And her mom was able to get work because the social worker was able to connect her with a businessman in their community who was willing to give her some sewing to do, and was able to give her jobs that is able to keep her home and taking care of the child while also getting an income as well.
Makes you want to cry thinking about.
All of them do.
Yeah. Wow.
All of them do. Yep. It's a regular event at night for me to be crying while I'm writing, but I am very honored to be able to be part of
We're
this.
so glad that you do what you do.
Well, thank you.
I mean, it takes a lot of courage to have to really, get to know individuals like this and to write those stories.
I see it more as a blessing for me because
I'm
it's
sure
one way for me to see the amazing breadth of love that God has for everyone. I mean, we get so used to seeing our little corner of the world and our little community.
It's so true.
That thinking what's going on in Nepal and what's going on in India and what's going on in Rwanda, and not only in Rwanda, but in a little hut that is falling apart of this little one and her family. It's not just that it's her family. It's her parent that's in prison, and it's her community that is now seeing people come in and minister to them, and also then minister to the community as well.
It happens even in this country in so many ways, when we begin to, I know for myself, because you can get so involved in what's going on in your own life. that sometimes we miss God opportunities. And it just that's how this book club started anyway. You know, with just by, you know, God speaking to me, because I was listening to start it. And he even gave me the name and everything. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And now, you know, 13 years later, here we are, and we're live on Facebook.
Right.
And we just started in the homes of women back in New York when I lived there. So, you know, and sometimes God gives you something, and it doesn't mean that you're going to see this change or the ripple effect, you know, like right away. It's going to take some time. And sometimes God gives us something, and he's waiting for us to see if we're going to follow through with it. And I know that in my life, when I didn't see things happening, but believe God spoke to me about doing something, it's a matter of just pressing in, even when you don't see anything, even when you don't feel like it, you know, just pressing in and allowing God to just do what God wants to do and making yourselves available. So I'm loving it. I really am. I just love what you do. And I love what Prison Fellowship International does as well. And it's nice to know that we have something in this country. Can you talk a little bit about what's happening in this country? Is that your area?
Not incredibly educated, no.
Okay. But so it is available in this country
Yes,
as well.
Definitely. And it is still going into the prisons and doing the ministry to change the heart, so that when they are released, when they are ministering to those around them, that it is that changed heart that then changes the behavior, and it breaks the cycle of repeat offenders. A lot of the time, we are finding in our statistics as we are collecting data that the graduates of our the Prisoner's Journey program are like 75% less likely to be repeat offenders.
Wow.
And it's a discipleship program. So once they have gone through the 8-week study, they are then also invited to a discipleship program, so that, yes, you've met Jesus, you see what he has done for you. What is your response to what he has done for you? To let's continue on this journey with you.
What I love is you're not just housing people that are incarcerated. What you're doing is helping to change their lives even before they leave at some point in time.
Yeah, and there's been stories. I got to tell a story of a guy who he started with just his family. You know, he accepted Christ as a Savior, and as his family is coming to visit him, he can't stop talking about what Christ has done in his life and in the lives of the people around him. And they are taking that back to their community, and his whole family has accepted Christ as their Savior. And that ripple effect that's happening in their community is so far beyond even what Prison Fellowship International planned. They didn't expect, when I've interviewed them about some of the stats, that we did not plan for this ripple effect to go. This is what God has done. It's taken our little effort and our intentionality and has made it go much, much further than what we could plan.
That is what is so amazing about this whole thing, is that just by being obedient to what God called a person to do, and look what God has done.
Yes.
I just love it. Is there a question in our audience at all? Yes. Two. Okay, go ahead.
So the work that's being done in the United States versus the work that's being done internationally, are the programs different?
I believe they are slightly different, but like there's a lot of crossover. For example, Angel Tree. There's Angel Tree in the United States. There's Angel Tree internationally as well. I'm not as educated about what all the programs are that Prison Ministries does, but a lot of it can be crossed over too.
So if you don't know about Angel Tree, it's absolutely related to Prison Fellowship Ministries and also international.
It's really cool to see how where you are putting together gifts and sending the gifts for the children for the Christmas program. They open the boxes and see these special gifts, things that they would not be able to get anywhere. And we get the pictures of them holding their stuffed animal or holding a baby doll, or their coloring books that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And seeing that absolute joy. Like, I don't get that excited about coloring books. but seeing that absolute joy of not only do I have this gift, this tangible gift, but it's from someone who sees me. And so it's another extension of us enabling the people that are already there to minister to them. And a lot of the times the Angel Tree events, it's a big event. So the Prison Fellowship Rwanda gets the children together. It's a big party. And so there's the food and there's music and then there's the gifts, and it's a community. It's I see you and you know my journey. You know what it's like to be on my journey. And then there's the people that are there to help teach them, not only that God loves them, but this is how we are here for you as well. It's really cool to see how that Angel Tree, just that a little thing of putting together a box, can be a life-changing thing.
A simple box.
Simple box.
Changes the lives of children.
Gives them one more joy.
Yes, there's another question.
Okay, so there's actually two.
We have two questions, so I'm going to try to repeat the first one.
The first one, do all the kids get to meet their parents, or is it when their parents are in prison for life? Like, is it only for certain periods that the parents are in prison, or I was just wondering, like, the kids get to meet their parents, or
Some.
because some of them, I'm sure, leave.
So maybe you could repeat that a little bit.
Yeah. So the question is, do the children get to meet their parents in prison, basically? It depends on where they are, and it depends on what has caused the imprisonment. Sometimes parents are imprisoned in other countries, so traveling to visit the parent in another country is rather impossible. Sometimes, I think it was Zimbabwe, they had a policy that unless you were 18 years old or older, you would not be able to visit your parent. And Prison Fellowship International worked very, very hard, and that has been reversed. And so this past year, oh my gosh, this past year, children that had not met their parents ever got to meet their father or their mother in prison. Or who had not been able to see him for 6 years, 9 years, 12 years, finally got to see their parent in prison. And the joy that the parent had on their face as these children are walking in. So there's this busload of children that got to go to the prison and meet their parents and have a meal and got to reconnect and spend the day. And it depends on, so yes, they do, and sometimes no. If it is at all possible, they do try to help the children reconnect with their parent, if it is at all possible. They do recognize that it is very important that there be that relationship between the child and the parent, especially when that has been ripped apart.
Sure.
And so that reconnection is very important for the emotional health of the child. So yes, they do try. It is not always possible, but they do try.
You had a second question.
Yeah, and when you get these stories in, you ever like come across something that's just super funny or something that you like Google, you're like, what is this? This is definitely not from America.
My Google search is probably being watched by the FBI because it can be anything from prisons in Rwanda to double check the spelling of the name to what is maize to what is a certain food to what is a certain province. So there have been, but also mixed with recipes for peanut butter cookies and diaper rash cream. So it's very, very wide history in my Google search. But there hasn't been too much that has been very confusing from what I've come across. Not a ton that's super funny, but it has been great to see the joy that comes from it. Was there something else with that question? Sorry. Okay.
No. Mary, you have a question.
Has any of the governments that you've dealt with or international has dealt with resisted your efforts or tried to block it?
Actually, it's been quite the reverse.
So can you just repeat that question?
Okay. And the question is, have the governments been resistant to the programs being implemented. And it's actually been quite the reverse, because when the prisoners have graduated from the programs, the violence in the culture has gone way down. There are fewer riots, there are fewer conflicts. It has changed dramatically, to the point that in several countries they are inviting the Prison Fellowship International workers to come and implement the programs. So it's becoming, for some it was harder to get the ball rolling, but once the ball was rolling and they see the effect and they see the numbers and they see what is going on in the communities, they are being invited in.
That's wonderful. Why don't you just tell everybody again how they can get a copy of the book? Because that's the most important thing.
You can contact me if you want a hard copy of the book. We have some free ones over here, so please feel free to take one, read it, pass it along. If you would like the ebook version, you can go online and through pfi.org, and you can find it, fill out the little form, and you can download it from there for free as well.
Okay. Anybody have any? Oh, we have another question. Okay, Veronica.
Now, is there a certain severity of the crime before prisoners in international fellowship is involved with the prisoners?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, can you say that again?
So is there a severity of their crime before you would be involved with the prisoner?
No. I've been able to see
So
stories.
let me just interrupt. She wanted to know if there was severity of crime before you would get involved.
And no, they go into the prisons. They say this is an opportunity, a class opportunity for you if you would like to participate. There's a big invitation, and like for the Prisoner's Journey program, there's a big promotional event of this is happening. If you would like to join the class, this is how you can do it. And so it's anybody from death row to in for a few months because of burglary. So it's anybody that is in prison.
And that's where you make the connection a lot of times about their children are from when they're in prison.
Yes. Because a lot of the time they are hard to find unless a prisoner says, I have a family, they are in need. Will you go help them?
Let me just say too, you were talking about praying for, all that God is doing in this ministry.
Please.
Pray for the people that are out there on the front lines and doing all this work. I mean, they have to be some pretty amazing people.
They are
truly,
rock stars.
Yeah, in my opinion, they are rock stars as well.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, yes, we have another question.
Do you have anybody that helps people who are wrongly in prison?
I am not familiar with that side. I do believe there has been help, but I think that's more case-by-case base and what is available in that country in that situation.
Okay. Yes.
Has your work had any influence on the actual staff of the prisons? Have
Yes.
had any heart changes?
It's a good question.
Yes.
So repeat that question.
So it's how has there been any change in the staff? So like the prison officials in the prisons. And yes, it kind of sometimes catches me off guard, but to see the testimonies that
no pun intended, right?
Oh my gosh. The prison officials who hear about Christ for the first time because of the programs. And there are some that will come to the promotional events and say, you need to attend this. And in fact, this is so important for you to attend that I'm going to attend it with you. And so it's wardens, it is prison officials, it's guards. There was a gal who was trying to do her work and then heard the prisoners singing worship songs in the class. And she said she just melted. She crumbled at hearing that joy and that peace in their song. And from there, she accepted Christ as her Savior as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. So we're going to end tonight's session, but I just want to thank Leilani so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yes,
I'm
for
very
being
honored.
with us.
I'm honored.
And next month we have an incredible woman, Brenda Jank, and she wrote Run Well, Rest Hard. And I have to tell you, I'm really good at running well, and I'm not so great at resting. So I'm really looking forward to next month as well. Join us on our Facebook page. It's Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club FW for Fort Wayne. So it's Yahweh, YAHWEH, Sisterhood Book Club. And we also have a website, same name, Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club. You can go online, see all of our upcoming authors. We also have Your Mother.
Yes.
In December, we have
Very
Peggy
exciting.
Sue Wells, so we're so excited for that. And she has a great book right for the holiday season, Homeless for the Holidays. So we're excited about that. And I just want to say this, next year, we are booked every single month except for December.
Okay.
So I'm excited that we have authors already scheduled for next year.
That is awesome.
Yes.
You're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, so we have a really wonderful year for you as well coming up. Some really great new authors, some very experienced authors, bestsellers. But I love to give new authors an opportunity as well. I know that I aspire to be one of those new authors one day.
Okay.
And so we're excited to thank you again so much.
My pleasure.
And maybe you can just give them the website information
Sure.
again.
PFI, Prison Fellowship International.org.
And you can go ahead and volunteer, or you can pick a child, and it's $35 a month. Rescue a child, it says, of a prisoner today.
And you can go online as well. So it can be a packet, or you can go online as well. Think about it, pray about it.
Yes.
It's very
And
much-
like you were saying, if you don't feel you can do it yourself, get together with one or a group of, a Bible study, a church, whatever it is, and a family. Yes. I used to do that years ago with my family. And there we are. We're back on screen. Okay. Anyway, thanks so much, everybody. And we will see you next month. Bye-bye.